with Dawson Bradford Senior. So Dawson farms with his wife Greta and son Dawson and his family here at Hillcroft Farms in Poppenyinning in Western Australia. Hopefully I pronounced that right.
That's pretty close. We'd been in Pole Dorset for over 40 years, and we would probably reach as far as we could go, both in genetically and in structural. We thought we had a sheep that was fairly good, and we were starting to look for new challenges. But then a few health issues came along, and I needed to reduce the workload, and so I looked around for how we could do that, and removing the wool was one of the easy ones we could do to remove workload, and so that's why we changed from the Pole Dorset to a shedding breed.
So to get to the top of the Pole Dorset game, what were sort of the principles of really making the rapid genetic gains that I know you did, and that I know that you've been making in this breed? So for those out there breeding other type of sheep, what are the principles that you apply?
Well, it's consistently having a goal in mind, and certainly we've placed a lot of emphasis on breeding values, selecting quite strongly for the characteristics that are financially beneficial to our customers, and that mainly being growth and muscle. So we put a lot of emphasis on that. At the same time, being very aware of structure and looking for the type of sheep that would do well, quite a robust sheep with good bone. But it was consistency, and it doesn't happen quickly. It takes about 3 to 4 generations before you really start to see the results of your work. And if you stay consistent in that, it happens.
I know you've got a fairly significant pork operation here, or piggery operation. Is there any learnings from that industry that you sort of apply into the sheep?
Oh, definitely. That's where I got my grounding in genetics. I've got no formal education in genetics. It's all what I have observed over the years of farming. But the pork is, early on I was running all that myself on my own, and you learn so much so quickly in the pork industry because your generation turnover is very rapid, and you can see the result of your efforts within 12 months. And so that gave me a good feel for what's achievable in sheep.
So tell us a bit about the Ultrawhite sheep. They're sort of, I guess, where you started and where they're going.
Yes, well, we started looking around back in 2004 and looking at a breed, really not with a view of developing a breed, but a breed that would satisfy our requirements. And really we couldn't find a breed that ticked all the boxes. And we looked at the Wiltshire Horn and the Dorper, which were the two that were available to it at the time. Neither had the whole package. The Dorper was a slow growing sheep, ideal for hard pastoral conditions, and the Wiltshire Horn was more suited to the higher rainfall country, but didn't have the muscling, and there was a lot of work to be done on that to get the muscling up to scratch. So with that in mind, we experimented with both. We crossed the Dorper and Dorset, and we crossed the Wiltshire and the Dorset, and straight away found that the non-breeding season of the Wiltshire Horn really made it of little value to us, because we need to lamb early in the season or late in the season. In fact, even now we're looking at lambing all year round, so it restricted it. So we quickly changed to the Dorper, who's Dorper Pole Dorset cross, and we started developing from there. We thought we'd have about a 50-50 Dorset Dorper, because I like the Dorset, I like the growth and the structure of the Dorset, and the Dorper, but it was the hardiness and the wool shedding that we wanted from the Dorper. So we went along for a couple of years like that, 3-4 years, and we weren't getting rid of the wool quickly enough. So I went back to a second cross of Dorper. So it was 3/4 Dorper, 1/4 Dorset. And I'd only doing that for a couple of years, and we had one of the worst seasons. We had the driest seasons we've had in my farming life. And the sheep that were first crossed, the 50-50, when we came to preg test them in June, they were carrying one condition score less than the 3/4 Dorper, quarter Dorset. So straight away told me that we'd captured the hardiness of the Dorper in the 3/4 quarter cross that was missing in the 50-50. So we settled on that, and that became our standard breed. And from there we've gone on selecting mostly for structure in the early stages, but now we're hard on into performance, growth rate, and muscling.
I remember back in the Dorset days, you weren't afraid of, I guess, cranking up inbreeding a bit to lock in traits you wanted. Is that something you apply as well?
Oh, very, very much so. That I believe is one of the strengths and weaknesses of the industry. The weakness is that there's not enough of it done. That if it's done and done properly, it's probably not for the ill-informed to play with, but it's not rocket science. It's only being consistent. Once you start line breeding and you lock in the genes that you want, and you can continually select for those genes, and all the time the ones that you're not wanting you cull, and eventually they drop or become less frequent, and you get more concentration of the genes that you're looking for, whether it be growth or muscle or whatever. And that's the benefit of line breeding. And so long as you keep an eye on what's happening, you will get inbreeding issues that occur, but it's only occur because the genes are in there and you're concentrating at one. And of course, a classic one would be the undershot. If you keep on inbreeding and find an undershot sheep, the first thing you must do is get rid of that line of genetics, because they are carriers. Once you do that, it can't come from nowhere. It's got to be in the sheep that you've already got. So once you get rid of it, you'll never see it again. So and that applies to many of the faults that you find in sheep, or any animal for that matter.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, a fair bit of use of pedigree and breeding values is fair to say.
Oh yes. Pedigree is essential. Look, if you don't know what you're breeding, what you've got, you don't know how to use it, and so that's critical. And certainly breeding values. Or once again, I'm not saying anything new. If you don't record it, then you can't improve on it, and that's the only way you can. So they're critical. They're worth dollars and cents to us all the time, and I always look at it this way. If it costs no more to run a sheep with high performance that's hardy than a low performance sheep that's hardy. So why not run the high performance sheep, and you're better off financially.
Yeah. Saw a few sheep getting around with short and lifting tails. Can you tell us a little bit about what's going on there?
Yes, that's a gene that just turned up in our flock. I'm not sure where it came from. I believe you do get it in Dorpers, particularly the white Dorpers, so I guess it's come from there. It didn't turn up until about the third cross in our Ultrawhites, and it looked quite good. It was short. It never became contaminated, because only a short tail. They lift up their tail when they're defecating or urinating, and so to me it was a no-brainer that we should leave it alone. Save the interfering with the sheep. There's less stress, and it's amazing how much time it saves at the marking cradle, not having to tail the sheep.
You're spent a fair bit of time as chair of WAMCO. Is that where your sort of desire to chase muscling into these sort of sheep has come from?
It probably helped. I've always had a strong affinity with sheep, with animals with good muscling. I guess I could say it's because of commercial reality, but it's probably a bit more than. I just enjoy to see a sheep that's well muscled up, or any animal that's well muscled up. And just when I became involved with the cooperative WAMCO, it became quite clear to me that the lean meat yield is very strongly correlated with muscle. So it became a no-brainer that we select for muscle as well as growth.
What's your view on intramuscular fat and shear force?
Yes, it's something that we haven't. Well, when we dispersed our pole Dorset flock, we had one of the highest intramuscular fat breed of pole Dorsets in Australia, and hopefully we've brought some of that through into our Ultrawhites. When I say hopefully, at this stage we're not able to test for intramuscular fat because it's the DNA hasn't been developed yet. I believe it's very close. But as far as eating quality, if anything that improves the eating quality, and certainly intramuscular fat does, and of course tenderness is strongly correlated with intramuscular fat, so I think it just complements one another. So long as, and we've yet to prove this, so long as it's not at the detriment to performance, then if it is, then we've got to balance the two offers, because your cost of reduction is always something to keep in mind as well.
With the focus on breeding values, a lot of what we talked about when we drive around the truck was structural stuff. I guess, how do you combine what you're seeing with what you're measuring?
As far as structure goes?
Oh, just general, I guess, subjective assessment versus data.
Oh yes, yeah. Well, certainly early on, the structural issues that were involved in the Dorpers when we brought them into the Dorset flock were quite high, and we had to put a lot of time into correcting structural issues, mainly in the shoulders, for lambing and for just mobility. So to get it right, we really had to focus on structure for 2 or 3 generations until we started to make progress, and then we started bringing in performance. But initially it was all on structure.
So these sheep are going into all sorts of states in Australia? Or?
Yes, they've gone into all states of Australia bar Tasmania, and all parts of Australia, from the wet areas, southwest, Western Australia, Victoria and South Australia, to the pastoral regions of New South Wales and South Australia, some into Western Australia. So yeah, they appear to do very well across a broad range of conditions, and that's what we developed for, because the Dorset had the ability to do well in the wetter conditions, or in the softer conditions, whereas the Dorpers brought hardiness with it into our breed.
Cool. So it's a rare occasion I get to see you without your wife Greta next year. So you've been a long-term partnership in this process.
Very definitely, Mark. It's a family business. Certainly, Greta and myself have it's our love, it's our life interest, and we're just very passionate about it. And really, you can't achieve what we've achieved on your own. It's a two thing. Greta helps me with sheep work. She used to help me catch lambs and weigh lambs, but now she still helps in the yards. But most of her work is keeping our records right, and that's very good, because you need that backup. And no, it's definitely a partnership.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much. It's been good to be back in WA for a little while, and we look forward to catching up next time.
Good, Mark. Thank you.